Hello and welcome in, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today we've got some sleepers, breakouts, and bust action, and here to help me with that is Emerson Beery. Emerson, thanks for coming back. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me on, my friend. I'm a big fan. Happy to be back. I always tell the people to start off these podcasts. I'm a late night bartender / server, and I'm always feeling fresh these mornings after a couple cups of coffee, just running on pure caffeine at this point, but ready to go.
I remember in that player, it's funny you say that player profiler dynasty startup, you have a different name on Sleeper and everyone says, who is this guy and who is that guy? And then you message, it's your favorite bartender. And someone posted, who the fuck is that? And I said, it's Emerson. That's who it is. It's Emerson. I don't know why I knew you as the bartender, but I picked that up. But good time in that draft. Drafting with some sharks in there. It's funny because my Scott Fishbowl Cheez-It division looks like that fucking player profiler startup. It's a nightmare. There's nothing. I got Cody. I got Maddie. Who else did I get? I got a couple guys that aren't necessarily player profiler, but are affiliated, like Nate Liss, and got the shirt on. Got it this week for the expo. The only problem I'm having is, you see when you're out in public and you see the girls with big boobs where their shirt doesn't fit right. I'm having the problem too because I'm a little out of shape here. So my big tits are not necessarily working well with this shirt. So
I think you're looking just fine, my friend. That's a sharp looking shirt, and working out's overrated. Okay. Don't let them lie to you. The guys.
I don't know if you can see it. Oh, I can't see it. It's got the eyes, and then it says official buzzard on the back. And my kid asked me, he said, what the hell does official buzzard mean? And I'm like, I don't know what that means, to tell you the truth. Do you know what that is? Is that a player profiler thing? I don't know what official buzzard means.
I believe the only thing I can think of is Matt Kelly refers to a lot of like people like, who, people in the comments coming at him and stuff like that are kind of taking cheap shots as buzzards. Okay. As buzzards.
Oh, gotcha.
That's the only right I can think of.
I seen it and I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a slogan or if they're trolling me or what.
I think it's trolling.
Okay. Like, I feel like this is making fun of me, but I'm like that guy who goes when he's a teenager and gets the Asian words tattooed on the back of his neck. Yeah, right. And he doesn't know if it's his name or, a curse word. So that's me. I don't know. I know what player profiler means, but I don't know what the hell the shirt is. I should message Matt Kelly about that because I'm sure at the expo, I'm going to have 100 people saying, what the hell does official buzzard mean? I don't fucking know. So. All right. Well, before we get into your players here, do you want to take a second to plug yourself? Tell everyone where they can find you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I work for SGPN. I do a podcast and release an article for them every week with Justin Bruni, who's a fantastic guy, Dave Heilman, some fantastic fantasy guys over there as well. And I also work for Player Profiler. You'll find an article from me every week. I also produce The Dominator for Billy Muzio and Player Profiler Today a few days a week for Jack Kavanaugh. And I also do my Cocktail Hour Fantasy Football podcast for the Face Off Sports Network, and you can catch me 2 or 3 times a week doing that as well.
I feel like I don't see you or Dave on that show. I'll flip through every once in a while. I'll be at work or laying around, and I'll be flipping through YouTube, and I'll be like, oh, there's an SGPN podcast, and I'll go on, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll chit-chat in the comments with Emerson or Dave Heilman, and I'll go in, I'm like, it's 3 guys I don't know. I'm like, it's never you guys. Oh. I never go on when it's you 2 in the episode. So
it's Sundays.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Justin. And
gotcha.
And it's usually you're probably catching the IDP guys, which has its it has its own unique flavor over there. Gary Van Dyke. I don't know if you've ever listened or interacted with him, but he's quite the character. Definitely check his podcast out.
A couple of them were guys I recognized, but it wasn't you or Dave. And I'm like, I don't really know these guys, so it's tough to comment in the. It's more fun to interact in the chat with people who know who you are and you can screw around a bit. But all right, well, let's get into it. We have your first player. Sleeper is waiting to load. There we go. Cleveland receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones. Fantasy Pros 2023 projections have him as wide receiver 63. Negligible rushing stats projected. 46.7 receptions, 691.2 receiving yards, and a projected 3.2 touchdowns. What is it about DPJ that has him in your sleeper category?
I feel like especially with these positive camp reports about Elijah Moore, that he feel like people are anointing him as the wide receiver 2 in this offense. I don't know if that is the case. Donovan Peoples-Jones had more receiving yards last season than he'd ever had in college or the pros. He had some rapport with Deshaun Watson last season. He's established a rapport. He just was talking about yesterday how he's been establishing a rapport with Deshaun Watson in camp this summer. He's a great athlete. And even if he's the wide receiver 3 in this offense, I still think he has it reminds me of Zay Jones' value last season in underdog drafts. This is a guy who's going to have some big games with Deshaun Watson. And my biggest reason for liking Donovan Peoples-Jones is, of course, he's a great athlete. He's going to be a field stretcher in this offense. He's going to play that kind of Will Fuller type role, I think, for Deshaun Watson. But what gets me most excited, I think, is the bounce back that I anticipate for Deshaun Watson. This is a player who I always talk about on my podcast, who's discounted, maybe rightfully so, but I feel like it's a little bit more personal. People don't want him on his fantasy team, maybe for the right reasons. However, for strictly fantasy purposes, Deshaun Watson is a guy who I think's pure passing ability rivals that of Joe Burrow, rivals that of even Patrick Mahomes. I feel like last season his footwork, his accuracy was missing, especially what it was compared to a couple of years ago. If we can just get 90% of that back, especially if he returns to form, talking about a guy who's in a great offense, good offensive line, weapons around him, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore. This offense is going to be very successful. I think the wide receiver 3 in this offense is going to beat the wide receiver 60 projection. And I think there's room for Donovan Peoples-Jones even to emerge as the second target.
He was so weird for me last year. I picked him up in a couple of leagues where I was pretty banged up, and I feel like I never picked the right week to play him. I'd play him and he'd just be a total dud, like a 1 point, 2 point. And then the week he'd be on my bench, he'd put up, 13 or 14. I feel like I never know when to play him, and the range of outcomes is so big. I kind of agree. Obviously, I think Cooper's the one. Him and Moore, I'm not a big Eli Moore fan. I think it's going to kind of be like Kadarius Toney without the injury. He got kind of steamed up here in ADP, and I think he's destined for disappointment. But if you look at the range here on Fantasy Pros, he's going 65th among wide receivers, 193 overall. So he's literally like undrafted or a last round pick. I don't know. I don't mind Sky Moore. I don't mind Nico Collins. If you have some faith that Jonathan Mingo could be good as a rookie, he's all right. But after that, there's a lot of, I'm not Zay Jones, Rashee Rice, Rondale Moore. They're okay. But once you get the guys below him, I don't think there's any of them who have any possibility here. KJ
I like
Osborne,
Paris Campbell. I'm a Paris Campbell guy.
Oh, I didn't even see him way down there. Well, yeah, 208. Yeah, I don't mind Paris Campbell, so that's another one. But this is, I guess this is kind of a range in the draft where you just kind of pick your favorite sleeper here and go with them. But, it's a last round target, so there's literally no risk. If you're right and he's the wide receiver 2 or even the wide receiver 3, he could be a solid flex option, and he's pretty much free. So,
and I know you can say this about every single player, but of course, I think it especially applies to Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's a better best ball player. I feel like that's a cop out, cheap saying, you know what I'm saying? But he is a better best ball pick. Like you said, he's going to have some boom or bust games. But you're looking down, especially if you're playing deeper leagues, you have 2 or 3 flex spots. Wide receiver 33, wide receiver 34, wide receiver 34, wide receiver 23. Those aren't great weeks, but those are startable weeks, especially if you have multiple flex options.
That goes to pretty much everyone who's outside the top 100. They're a better best ball.
They're better best ball.
Just means they're outside the top 100 because they're inconsistent as shit. And that's
exactly
how it is. But everyone on that list, oh, there we go. Everyone on this ADP list here, there's not one single consistent guy. Like, I think if Nico Collins wins the job, not like the wide receiver 1 job, or Sky Moore, they could be consistent. But even that, like, who was the wide receiver 1 in KC last year? Was it Juju? MVS? Both of them?
Juju. It was Juju.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even he was inconsistent, though. Dealt with some injuries. Like, I don't think there's any, they're going at 145 or 147 to 208. There's no consistent players in this range. So
you got some talent in there. I'm hoping that the positive reports about Rashee Rice are true. I'm a Kansas City Chief fan, so it's been painful to watch us miss on these second wide receivers again and again and again. So I'm really hoping that Rashee Rice is that guy, especially with Kadarius Toney set to miss a little bit of regular season time potentially.
Good God, give me a sec here. I'm trying to. You know what's painful to watch? My computer trying to load my graphics today. I don't know why.
They're
It is
so
running
intense and so well
super.
thought out that the computer doesn't even have the
I know.
capacity to put it up on the screen.
Yeah, there we go. And then it did. I switched over and it did it like that. Good God, my computer is just not on its A game today, and I don't know why. It's a, I don't normally record this early. I'm an after lunch kind of guy, so I think my computer's still asleep. But your breakout, Tampa running back Rashad White, Fantasy Pros projection of RB23 this year, 817 rushing yards, 4.3 rushing touchdowns, projected 46.7 receptions for 341.3 yards with 2 touchdowns. Why is Rashad White your breakout?
I loved Rashad White coming into the NFL. Of course, I loved the landing spot with Tom Brady. But going back to college, he was very successful as a freshman. He was great all 3 years. If you look back at his college profile, he had that 2020 shorter code year, but he's very good then as well. Elite athletic profile. And I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't get more usage at the beginning of the year last year, but we saw him take more of that role from Leonard Fournette. The offensive line was a disaster last season too. So people throw out his efficiency metrics when talking, usually giving a counter to Rashad White. It was a very small sample size, I think. I think the offensive line is going to be much better this year. I saw an electric runner in college. And most importantly, I don't think that the reception part, I know we're transitioning from Tom Brady, a prolific high volume passer who's known for checking down his running backs, to Baker Mayfield, but Baker Mayfield actually had one of the highest check down rates in the NFL last season.
The
He likes
highest.
to the highest. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I didn't want to say the highest. That's what I
No,
thought, but I didn't
it
want to miss
was.
the
It
quote.
was. Yep.
Perfect. All right, that's what I thought. So Baker Mayfield, highest check down rate in the NFL last year. He's going to be looking for short, dink and dunk passes. Rashad White's a guy who, especially in PPR leagues, he's going to be getting 70. I think he has 70 receptions in his range of outcomes, and that's going to boost him up. I think, he's going as the RB27 or so, RB26 on Underdog a lot of the time. I have him as a top 16 running back this season, and he's a great value in 2023 drafts.
He's someone where I like him this year in redraft. In Dynasty, I'm hoping he goes off this year because I'm trying to sell him in every league where I still have him. I love the profile. I love the way he plays. I think he's a great talent. He was like a 24-year-old rookie. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, I want one good season out of this guy, and I am selling every Dynasty share I have.
I mean, that's any running back, honestly, like it's outside of a couple,
True.
like you just take advantage of the high sell point and then that's my classic dynasty strategy, to cash out my high value running backs and then just have a great wide receiver core and then just piece together my running backs. Derrick Henry is one of my most owned running backs now in dynasty, just because you can send a second round pick. I traded I think Zay Flowers or Roshan Johnson in the throw in, for Derrick Henry. Just people are just wanting to throw Derrick Henry away. I'll take the value this season and just get a cheap price tag and figure out running back again next year.
I did an insane amount of dynasty startups this year, and I found normally I like to go young. This year I found I have I might have drafted 12. I have 10 win now teams. The people it was so easy to draft a win now team. I'm getting I had one league. It started off something I had Patrick Mahomes at the 101, but then I had Kelsey, McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Devontae Adams. My first 8 players were legit top 12 players in redraft, but because they were all old, I'm just going, well, I guess I'm just going to win it all this year. So,
I mean, it pays the league dues for 8 seasons. So you better,
that's what they said. You just win it once. Yeah. I'll worry about getting younger after I've won it the first 2 years. But as far as Rashad White goes, I like him this year. I am worried they may add someone. There's all those veteran landmines sitting out on the free agent market, and that will cause him to come crashing down. Well, in ADP anyways, which might might set up a decent buy low window for him. RB23, I like the price tag. I don't know if he beats it by a large amount. Actually, that's his projection. Let me bring up his actual ADP if my computer will coordinate with me and not have a stroke. Oh, it's working. How about that? Okay, there we go. He is currently going in ADP as RB26, so he's even cheaper than his projection.
Yep.
I don't know if he finishes as I don't see him as a top 15, 16. I can see him in the late teens, early 20s. So 26, I like him over DeAndre Swift. I like him over Madison, Cook. So he has a pretty safe, cost ratio here. I don't have a ton of shares because I always find that it says he goes 66th overall. I feel like he's gone off the board much earlier than that. The running back run always hits. People panic and they say, oh, I'll take Rachaad White. He's got it to himself. So I don't know. What do you think of that range in the ADP?
See, I look at just a guy with just a lot more PPR upside than a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, even in a better offense. Just somebody, sorry, I'm kneeling down here to look here. But yeah, Isaiah Pacheco,
Right.
he's not going to be involved in the pass game at all. DeAndre Swift, I mean, my goodness, are we going to trust this? Is now the time to trust DeAndre Swift after he just got sold for really pennies on the dollar from the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, they gave him
Dalvin
away.
Cook, yeah, completely given away. Dalvin Cook, not on a team yet. These running backs recently who have gone down this path, just like Le'Veon Bell, LaShawn McCoy, sometimes they are just dust at this point. You have to be very dialed. You have to be, I think, in peak condition to be, running back in the NFL. Just like even just the time away from camp and stuff, it's big for these guys, I think. And the NFL showing, the value that they think. Dalvin Cook is probably the one guy who's probably going to get a big role still set, but and I think Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott are probably set for just minor roles this season. And Miles Sanders, and as Matt Kelly was just talking about this weak ankles is what big Matt Kelly's big quote this week about. So yeah, I really like Rachaad White in that range, and he's ahead of most of these guys in this territory for me.
I agree. I like him and I like his current cost. I've tried not to go overboard though. I just feel like he's one of those landmines waiting to happen where everybody loads up and I have 90% shares of them. And then all of a sudden it's, hey, we signed Dalvin Cook and you're completely screwed. So I'm kind of hedging my bets here and I'm not getting too carried away with him, but I do have some shares. Moving on to a player that I have almost zero shares of because I sold him during the off. Actually, I think I sold him last year when he had all the buzz. Sold him for first rounders last year. Your bust is New England running back Ramondre Stevenson, projected to be RB12, 1,024 and a half rushing yards for 6.3 touchdowns. 54.7 receptions projected for 382.3 yards and 1.5 touchdowns. God, is he going high in ADP for a Bill Belichick Patriots running back? What are your thoughts?
I mean, that's what I mean. Like the volume, we're playing the volume play in a bad offense. I'm fine doing that with James Conner as an RB27 to RB28 where he goes in territory, but RB12 for Ramondre Stevenson, I don't like it. The NFL is riddled with, third, fourth round draft capital running backs with just one or two successful seasons, not, an elite athlete. Just going back, looking at his usage last season, even he's in rare territory for where he performed in the amount of carries that he got. And, I was just reading, I wish I brought this particular stats with me today, but they were talking about how top 12 running backs averaged around 305 touches, I believe, was the range, 300 plus touches. And Ramondre Stevenson didn't come too close to that last season. And I don't know, I know we had Damian Harris last year, but the Patriots are known for deploying running backs in specific roles. I think it's likely that his passing role usage decreases this season, given that they have Pierre Strong and some other guys on that roster capable of doing that. James White was injured early on. And I think, that's what took that role out of the offense. So looking forward to this season, I think Ramondre Stevenson could be more of just that early down grinder in what is a bad offense at the RB12 spot. That's way too high for me in ADP. I'm expecting, I have him more as ranked as a high-end to mid-tier RB2, and I see him slipping a bit in drafts. And, of course, you still have the landmine that the Patriots are out there scouting Dalvin Cook. And if he signs, then that would be lights out for Ramondre Stevenson, in my opinion.
They've always had a designated pass-catching back. They've given every indication all offseason that they plan to have a designated pass-catching back and that it's not Ramondre Stevenson. This is like the volume play here. I mean, I get it. He's probably better than Rachaad White, but it feels a lot similar to Rachaad White. He's the only guy there. Bad offense. We're assuming he's going to have all the carries. The only difference is it's at 4 times the cost of Rachaad White. So I don't hate Ramondre Stevenson. I don't like Patriots running backs, and I don't like them at RB10, late second, early third round pick. I have 0 shares of him. I would rather wait a few rounds and, gamble on some of the younger guys. Like I seem to that spot in the draft, even I don't have much Pollard either. That Pollard, Stevenson, Brees range at the end of the second, early third, that's where I find myself transitioning to wide receiver. And then I come back let me scroll down a bit. I come back in around the 43 range here, and I go for Dobbins, Mr. Weak Ankles, and Cam Akers. So I just find myself not only avoiding Ramondre, but avoiding running back in the late second, early third altogether, because I just don't like the guys in that range.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I look at it, I just don't think 88 targets is replicable again. I think you're right. They're going to have a
Was it that
designated.
many? It was, wasn't it? 88?
88 targets. That's not going to happen again. And we're talking about a guy, 279 touches last year. I think it's going to be tough for him. I think it's probably going to fall more into the 250 range. And if that's the case, it'll be very tough for him to be the RB12 this year. I'm looking at guys, Najee Harris, a much more set role, the best offensive line he's going to have to play with yet in his career. I would certainly take Najee Harris ahead of Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, a running back. I believe the Tank Bigsby, hype has gone a little bit out of control. Travis Etienne dropping in drafts. This is still the lead running back in a powerful offense, had very high usage down the stretch last season. Kenneth Walker, I've been pounding the table that Kenneth Walker's, of course, that's another player profiler take, of course, but Kenneth Walker is the best running back. Kenneth Walker's the best running back in Seattle. I would also take Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones. Because honestly, again, these guys set for higher roles. Those are players I would take ahead of Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, I take Aaron Jones over him pretty easily. And I know it sounds crazy because Jones is so old, but Jones is going, around after him? Exactly around after him. And Jones has had, we want Ramondre Stevenson to be what Jones has been. I'm out. Like I said, Pollard, Stevenson, Hall. I think all 3 of them are going too high for me this year. Hall, if he was healthy, I can buy in on it, but I'm out on that range of running back at that draft cost. So, no go for me. All right. You want to take another second here to plug yourself and where we can find you?
I appreciate you having me on, my friend. I love always chopping it up. You can always find me, like I said, SGPN Player Profiler and the Face Off Sports Network, doing various different podcasts, producing different shows, writing articles. I do a little bit of everything. So definitely check out those sites. And the people I work with at each of those sites are fantastic resources as well. And once again, I really appreciate you having me on.
It's great to have you. It's always fun to chat. I got to get you next time to put the white thing under your bar with your actual tag on it, because I started laughing as you were talking. I'm sitting there and I was going to myself, I'm really glad his name doesn't have 2 underscores, because then your name would have come up as Dynasty Anal.
On Twitter it does.
Off on mine,
on Twitter it does.
Does it?
That's like the cutoff on a lot of people's screens. Awesome. And so like once a month somebody loves telling me, just like they screenshot it and then
your
like put it in the comments, and I'm just like, oh, I get it. Okay, I've seen it before. You're the 15th person to make that joke. Okay.
I'm sure it's funny to everyone else except for you.
I love it.
Are you a baseball fan at all?
I'm not a baseball guy. No, I'm not a baseball guy.
There was a Yankees player named Brett Gardner, and he was bald and had a big, huge, round head and looked like that kid's cartoon character, Caillou or whatever the hell it was. And people used to send him posts all the time. And one day he posted a picture of him and a picture of Caillou, and someone posted around and he said, "Will you fucking people stop sending me this shit? I get it. I look like him." Yeah, he was saying he gets like 5,000 comments a week of "you look like Caillou." So from now on, you are Dynasty Anal.
Hey, I hope I'm popular enough one day where I get 5,000 screenshots of people calling me Dynasty Anal. I hope that happens for me.
Yeah, we got to get you to use the white bar underneath next time for your tag. I was like, Dynasty. I'm like, it's cut off, and then I'm like, oh, good God, thank God there's not 2 underscores in his name, or it would be weird.
I provide a different kind of fantasy content for the people. It's unique.
Christ. Oh my God. Oh, specializing in backdoor value. All right.
That's
Well,
a great way to end it. That's a great way to end it.
yeah. Oh, yeah. If that's not the end, I don't know what is. This has been Sleepers, Breakouts, and Bust with Dynasty Anal. Once again, I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thanks again, Emerson, for coming on, and thank you all for watching. Take care.